Welcome in, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Go Bills podcast. I am your host and founder of the page, Brett, back for our fourth edition of this podcast. We're excited to have you guys out here, and it's game day. We got the Bills playing the Carolina Panthers today at 7 o'clock on NFL Network, so we're looking forward to that coming up. That's going to be a great game. It's going to be a matchup against two of the 2018 quarterbacks to start. But the only thing is they're not battling against each other. They're battling against each other on the same team. Josh Allen will not be playing, but it's going to be Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield versus the Buffalo Bills. So that's going to be a little bit exciting. Today we're going to be talking about, of course, the quarterback position for the Buffalo Bills. This is the fourth installment of this series, the training camp preview. Well, now it's got kind of moved into the state of the Buffalo Bills roster, and we'll talk about the Buffalo Bills quarterback position, headlined by Josh Allen. He's going to be returning for his fifth season coming to Buffalo, along with newcomers Matt Barkley, who was previously with the Bills in the past couple of years, and newly traded to the Bills, Case Keenum. The key departures for the Bills this year, we have Mitch Trubisky that played for us last year, who was our backup, moving on to the Pittsburgh Steelers, signing a 2-year contract with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and we wish him all the best moving forward. Hopefully he can win the job against Kenny Pickett, but we'll see where that goes. New numbers that we have on the Bills this year, we have Matt Barkley, who's going to be jersey number 11, and Case Keenum, who will be number 18. To begin, we're going to talk about the first quarterback of the three, and we'll talk about our starter in Josh Allen. Josh Allen is playing like an MVP level every single year, so you know what you're going to get out of him. But this is the first time in a long time that Buffalo is going to be comfortable with a quarterback not named Jim Kelly, but ever since Jim Kelly, this is the first time that we're comfortable. And guys, you got to tell me, how does it feel to actually be comfortable with a quarterback and not have to worry about each and every draft coming up? Oh, we got to pick a quarterback. We got to get that position settled. It feels pretty good to me because I feel like, you can address other needs such as the defensive tackle position that we had where we start with Tulaway, or, the cornerback position where we lost Levi Wallace, and now we have to bring in Kaiir Elam. It feels good to actually have that position solidified for the foreseeable future, and now we have a team to build around, whereas in the past, 18 years, we didn't have a team to build around. We didn't have a quarterback where we were like, okay, this is our guy. This is the first time in a long time that we have that guy, and it feels really good to have. Allen is coming into his fifth season in Buffalo, and he is playing like an MVP. He was excellent in the playoffs. Only thing is, and this is what the media is going to be telling you, he was 13 seconds from being, perfect in the playoffs and going into back-to-back AFC championship games. But he is playing out of his mind. He led the Bills to drives every single time, and he is just playing out of his mind lately. Moving on, we have Josh Allen is going to have a new revamped offensive line behind him with new additions such as Roger Stafford and backups that he hasn't had in the past, where he's had Cody Ford as a backup, and now you have Greg Mance as a backup, who is a great backup. You have David Queensberry, who's coming over from the Tennessee Titans as well as his right tackle, going to be coming in. And you have an excellent interior offensive line depth. You've added to the positions such as running back and wide receiver and tight end to make them deeper, so that you have really 7 good guys that can make this team easily, starting off with Stephon Diggs and working your way all the way down to Jamison Crowder and Gabriel Davis. You have Isaiah McKenzie on the team, Jake Kumaro, and you have newly added Khalil Shakur. So this team is going to look really good this year as far as the wide receivers, and Josh is going to be able to spread the ball around a lot. Going into the running back position, you revamp it and you get a guy like James Cook, who James Cook in college was a beast, leading the Georgia Bulldogs to a national championship game. And he looks the part. I mean, he could be the same thing that Jim Kelly and Thurman Thomas were. I know it's early in his career, and we don't know if he's going to be Thurman Thomas, but he could be that security blanket that Josh Allen is looking for. You know, one of the things that he really struggled with in his career is he's not very good at taking what the defense gives him, taking that short ball, and then letting his running back or his receivers get upfield and make plays. That's one thing that he needs to really work on. But you bring in James Cook, who is the second-round pick in the 2022 NFL draft, bring him in, and this could be the icing on the cake where you have a guy that can, you know, just take the little dink and dunk passes and make big plays. He has the speed to do it, and this could be a really good offense and probably the best offensive line, wide receivers, and running back room that Josh has had in his career in Buffalo. But one of the biggest issues in Josh Allen's game is having the ability to comprehend checking the ball down, taking what the defense gives him, whether it's, you know, little short dink and dunk passes to the running back, as well as dink and dunk passes with in zone coverage where you have a guy that's in the middle of the field that just gets the 5 to 10 yards, making the next down a little easier for him. But that's one thing that he can improve on, and he has improved on in his career. Another number that he has improved on a lot is his completion percentage, which went to 61.3% last year. But the biggest thing that worries me about Josh Allen, and this is something that I think that Ken Dorsey and the offense will work on, is not allowing Josh to scramble as much as he did last year, and having that, like I said, that security blanket to be able to hand the ball off to and be able to take a little bit of the pressure off of Josh. That's one thing that he has had in his career, is he has to be that guy on offense that gets the offense down the field. Now he can have the ability to have a good running back that can, you know, you can give the ball to him 10, 15 times a game. And you have another running back in Devin Singletary that you can give him the ball 10 to 12 times a game. And you can rely on the run game to beat teams. But this is something that he hasn't had in his career, so that's good things that he has. As far as the finances go for Josh Allen, he is entering his, like I said, his 5th season in Buffalo. Just signed a new contract that doesn't kick in until next year, a 6-year, $258 million contract. He is accounting for $16.37 million on the salary cap, which is second on the team behind Tre'Davious White, 42nd highest in the entire NFL, and 14th highest among quarterbacks. Moving on to the backup position, and this is something that kind of has a little bit of a worrisome to it. Not as bad, but a little bit of a controversy that's kind of developing lately is you got the battle between Case Keenum and Matt Barkley, and I went in order of how they are on the depth chart currently. So this could very well change, but you bring in Matt Barkley and you bring in Case Keenum was traded to Buffalo for a 2022 7th-round pick. Keenum struggled in his first preseason game in Buffalo. Didn't really look like he, understood the offense and didn't really move the ball down the field like Matt Barkley did. And Matt Barkley also has chemistry with Josh Allen, playing there for 3 years prior. But he just didn't look like he understood the offense. But then comes the second game of the year, and Case Keenum looked like he really understood the offense, and he commanded the huddle. He looked like a totally different quarterback, and I have to give him props for that. That's something that you don't really see out of a veteran. Sometimes they just, they like to bend down and just say, okay, I'm done. I had one bad game, and okay, I'm not gonna do anything. But props to Case Keenum for continuing to take accountability and say, I need to get better, and what can I do to get better? He really self-reflected and does a good job. And he is a student of the game. That's one thing that I have to give him is he has everything that Buffalo is looking for in a player, the ability to study the game, to understand the game, and get what can I do better and how can I make this team better? That's one thing that I really like about Case Keenum. In the next game that he played against the Denver Broncos, he had completed 16 of 18 passes for 192 yards and a touchdown after having the multiple interceptions in the last game. He has some experience as a starter. He was a starter for the Washington Redskins at the time and the Minnesota Vikings, leading the Minnesota Vikings to the Minneapolis Miracle game where Stephon Diggs caught the ball from Case Keenum, caught the touchdown pass, and the rest is history in that game. As far as that, many of you will probably bicker about that, say that there was blown coverage and everything, but he did lead his team to a win in the playoffs. So he does have that playoff experience. That's something that Matt Barkley doesn't really have. Now moving on to Matt Barkley. Matt Barkley, nicknamed Bitcoin Barkley, returns to Buffalo after spending some time last year with the Tennessee Titans, Carolina Panthers, and Atlanta Falcons. He signed a one-year contract with the Bills to reunite with Ken Dorsey and Josh Allen. He previously played 3 years in Buffalo from 2018 to 2020. And during those 3 years, Barkley played in 8 games, completing 53 of 97 passes for 788 yards. And he threw 3 touchdowns in those games. In the preseason, Matt Barkley is looking like a starting quarterback in this league, completing 25 of 32 passes for 289 yards, no touchdowns, and a pick. Although that pick might not have been his fault, he still looks like a starting quarterback with those numbers. Those are numbers that you want from a quarterback, and those are numbers that, other than the interception, you want to see from a guy like Josh Allen. He does have one thing different than Josh Allen and one thing different than Case Keenum is he does struggle with being able to throw deep balls. He has to get the ball out of his hands very quickly, and he does rely on the quick throws and gets the ball to his playmakers and into his playmakers' hands. One thing that's really been developing in the past couple of games is, who's going to be the backup quarterback to Josh Allen? And this is the question that I propose to you guys is Matt Barkley a little bit ahead of Case Keenum just because he does have the experience with Josh Allen and he has the ability to understand the offense? He was with Ken Dorsey for 3 years, was with Josh Allen for 3 years, and he might have the insider track that some people aren't even talking about and the national media isn't talking about, where he can make the roster. While most people think that he does have an uphill battle in this offense to get on the roster, he is an excellent addition that can make the roster. And maybe Buffalo does go with 3 quarterbacks, while that's very unlikely. But he is a player that I believe, personally, he could be the backup quarterback and can be the backup quarterback on this team. So I propose the next question to you guys is, should we trade Case Keenum and see what we can get out of him and keep Matt Barkley? And would you feel comfortable with keeping Matt Barkley? Another question I have for you guys is, do you think that if we do trade Case Keenum, that we will get something out of it? The reason why I'm asking you that is because we have guys that are on the quarterback market, such as Jimmy Garoppolo, who he has told the San Francisco 49ers that he does want to be traded, and we're not really sure where he's going to go. Not a lot of teams are looking for quarterbacks at this time. Maybe they waited a little too late to put in the request, but you don't know where Case Keenum goes, and you don't know where Jimmy Garoppolo will go. So what options does he have? There's a couple teams in my mind that I think would be good additions for getting a quarterback like Case Keenum. If we were to trade him, maybe we get another asset in the draft. And that could be a team like the Saints. It could be a team like even the Tennessee Titans, even though they have Malik Willis and they have Ryan Tannehill, but another guy that can be a backup to them. Another team that I thought of was the Dallas Cowboys. That's another team that has Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott was injured in the past couple of years, and they don't really have a backup. They have Ben DiNucci, but who else will be the backup? Another team I thought of was bringing him to the Atlanta Falcons to be the backup behind Marcus Mariota. And I feel like that's a spot where he can really help a young quarterback in Desmond Ridder develop into a really good quarterback like he did with Josh Allen. So that's the question that I have is where should he go if he were to be traded? While I do believe the market is a little slow right now, injuries do happen, and this is the third week of the preseason, and there could be an injury that happens where a team is desperate and they want a guy like Case Keenum on their team, but that could very well happen. Moving on, we're going to talk about a couple of other notes that are going on the team. Recently, Deion Dawkins has restructured his contract, allowing the Bills to free up about $5.6 million in cap space. And I have to give some props to Deion Dawkins and some of the other players that have restructured their contracts. Sometimes, especially in baseball and other sports like that, you don't really see these players restructuring their contract and wanting to stay with the team. They just want the money and they want to move on. So I give a lot of props to Deion for wanting to do what helps the team and get the team in the right direction. This move allowed the Bills to free up $10 million in cap space. So we could go after a guy like Odell Beckham Jr. or a guy like Joe Hayden, and it can make the team a lot better. But I don't know who they're going to go after. But this does free up some ideas of players that the Bills could get. Now, a question that I have for the fans that are watching this podcast is, who could the Bills get besides Odell and besides Joe Hayden? What other players would you like the Bills to get? Another topic that has made news recently is Cody Ford getting traded. Cody Ford got traded from the Bills to the Arizona Cardinals for a 5th-round pick. And I have to say, this is one thing that is different from players like Cole Beasley and John Feliciano. Cody Ford left with all class. He was quiet throughout his time in Buffalo. He had his struggles. He was a starting offensive tackle moving into the guard position. He did everything and wanted to get better. Didn't really ask anything out of it. The only thing he did ask was he wanted to be a starter at the end in Buffalo, but he worked his butt off. He came in and kept his mouth shut and was a very good blue-collar player for the Bills. And while his time in Buffalo didn't work out, he did everything that he could to help this team. And I give him a lot of props, and I wish him all the best moving on into his career with the Cardinals. And I will be rooting for him against any other team and all 30 teams in the NFL but the Buffalo Bills. And another thing that I would like to say is this is the third preseason game, and most of the starters will not be playing in this game, starters like Josh Allen and everybody else. But the players that have come through training camp and have come through the preseason with the Bills, I would like to take a moment to talk about each and every one of those players that have, because they don't really get the respect from the national media and from other teams and other fans. But I would like to take a moment to talk about them, because these are the players that really challenge the starting players and get them to get better. Competition is the greatest thing that can happen in sports. And without these players, you don't know what you're going to have if something happens to like a player like Josh Allen, or something happens to a player like Stephon Diggs. You have these undrafted players who some of them make the team and then they come into the Hall of Fame. Players like a Wes Welker that does that. So for the players that are coming into their third preseason game, I wish every one of them the best. I wish that they can have success in the NFL. And if they don't, I wish them all the best in any other league that they go into or anything that they do in their career. But for each and every one of those players, this is the time to show what you have and put the film on tape, especially in the second half of the game. You never know. One big play could be the difference between you being on the roster or being on the free agency. So do everything you can, give everything you've got, keep going, and you don't know that you could be playing for the Bills or you could be playing for any other team in the NFL. So I wish each and every one of you the best, and I hope that your careers last for many, many years to come. With that being said, this has been the Go Bills podcast, and we would like to take a moment to address the elephant in the room that has developed in the past 24 hours. The situation that's going on with the allegations between Matt Araiza and the female that has been named in this case. At this time, we don't really know what the details are of what's going on. And while many of you can comment on what's going on, we at the Go Bills podcast would like to let the judicial system play their part and hopefully get this right. And whether it's one way or the other, get it right and do what is right. And we will not be talking about this subject again. We will let the judicial system play out, and we will be moving on from that. So we will keep our comments to ourselves, and we will see where this goes. This has been the Go Bills podcast, and you can find us on YouTube, Instagram, not Snapchat, but YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and now we are on TikTok. We have added TikTok to our arsenal, and we are going to be adding our website in the near future. So if you haven't already, please follow us on all those social media accounts. We appreciate each and every one of you. And if this has been your first time watching this podcast, please like, subscribe, and follow us on all our social media platforms. We would greatly appreciate it. This has been Brett with the Go Bills podcast, and we will see you guys next time. And if you are on here still, please click over to our Instagram page, and we will be starting our live for our pregame show in just about 5 minutes. So with that being said, this has been Brett with the Go Bills podcast. And as always, we'll see you next time, and Go Bills.